Greetings, Emmett here from readingforwisdom.com. The normal format of this show is for us to pick a book that we really like and review it. We're going to do something slightly different today and in the next episode. What we're going to do is we're going to feature the top 10 books recommended for reading by militaries across the world. Now, where did we get this information? Well, I spent quite a few years studying the phenomenon of the professional military reading list. And what I did was I collected lists, recommended reading lists from armies, navies, air forces, from countries all across the world, from Asia, from Europe, North America, here in New Zealand, of course, and Australia, and analysed those lists, did a big quantitative analysis, and boiled down what were the 100 books that militaries all across the world had reached a consensus. These were books that were really important reads and had something essential to pass on to officers, to NCOs, to soldiers, and of course to the general reading public. So what we're going to do is on this episode is highlight the top 10, and we'll be continuing that on in the next episode till we get to number 1. At number 10, Martin van Creveld's Command in War. Now, whether you disagree with Creveld, whether you agree with him, however you feel, he is a provocative writer, one of the great modern military theorists, Israeli writer, speaks many languages, German included, which enabled him to do research very deeply, very broadly across a range of archives. And based on his knowledge of modern war and his knowledge of historical war, Van Creveld always brings wonderful insights. In Command in War, it was one of the very first books to really look at the commander and his role. So the commander and his use of technology, the commander and logistics, the commander and the organization of his men and women. Number 10 on our list, highly recommended by militaries across the world. At number 9, we have Eliot Cohen's Supreme Command. Now, in contrast to number 10 on the list, this book really is about those big statesmen, people who were politicians, but who really interfered with command and commanders and did it brilliantly. This book highlights Winston Churchill, it highlights David Ben-Gurion, it highlights Abraham Lincoln, and of course the French politician Clemenceau. And Cohen takes a wonderful look through big strategy, the big strategic picture. This is essential reading. At number 8, we have Masters of War by Michael Handel. And this work looks at classical strategy, Clausewitz, etc., and a bit of a challenging read. This is a beast of a book. This really is an intellectual tour de force. Not something I would recommend for the average reader. Really is an advanced piece of work, but something that I think that young officers should get familiar with as an introduction to the big picture of military strategy. And for military historians, armchair historians, if you're into the big theories, if you're into Clausewitz, if you're into those great figures from the past, Sun Tzu, this is a real primer, but it's a challenging read. At number 7, we have John Keegan, The Mask of Command. This is the first of 2 appearances by John Keegan in our top 10. And Keegan, a rightly venerated writer. In another episode, I'm going to talk about Keegan and his works. I'm not a huge fan. I think the one or two of his works are definitely classics. This is a great read, but his career is also featured, in my opinion, by some disappointing works, and some of Keegan's sort of central theories I don't particularly believe myself, but a great writer nonetheless, one of the true greats. Mask of Command is about generals and about the almost the personas they develop to get the job done, the personas they develop to get people to follow them, the personas they develop to gain power and hold power. Very interesting thesis, and militaries all around the world highly recommended. At number 6, the first book on our list so far to have been written by an actual practitioner of war, a general, a hero, a great leader. And this was written by Hal Moore, General Hal Moore, who was one of the early commanders on the ground in the American leg of the Vietnam War. We Were Soldiers Once and Young. It was also co-written with Joseph Galloway, an American journalist, and that partnership was fascinating, and it's produced a really wonderful book. Fascinating because Galloway was a journalist who covered the battles that are described here in the early part of 65 and 66. And this book is lauded for a reason. It's full of great humanity, great heroic tales, lots to learn about the actuality of command on the ground in highly challenging conditions. It was made into a really good movie with Mel Gibson, and you'll see Mel Gibson featured on the cover playing Hal Moore. That's a movie worth checking out, and this book, number 6, for a very good reason. So we just went from number 10 to number 6 on the list of books that are recommended by militaries across the world. In the next episode, we're going to go from 5 to the number 1 spot. If you're interested in the research behind these videos, the research into the professional military reading lists, come over to readingforwisdom.com. There's a link down below, and you'll find some of the full papers there. If you like the type of work that we're doing here on Reading for Wisdom, do give us a like, subscribe, tune in next time when we go from 5 to 1.